Aloha. Quick follow-up video to the last video. One thing I forgot to mention was the authority of consciousness talking points, or not the talking points, but the authority to speak on what consciousness is. Like, this goes into the last video I was talking about with white sorcery, how we are bombarded by all these interpretations, quantum interpretation of reality, simulation theory, heliocentrism, the CERN program, like all these different interpretations of reality that are pawned off as the end all be all. Like, that is like for the majority of the mass consciousness around the world, at least on a mainstream scale, which is, like this synthetic blanket over the masses of people. People thought that they were monkeys, evolved from monkeys, and still to this day, that's still happening. But also thinking that we are in this heliocentric universe. That came from an authority figure. Who was that authority figure? What did that authority figure look like? What did it sound like? What kind of other authority systems or institutions were those people connected to? What were their motives? What were their intentions? What were their actions against particular people? You can't even talk about that shit in the so-called truther community. This is what I'm talking about with this white sorcery. Even in the truther community, it's ran by so-called white people. In the new age community, and this is the thing, and this is a testament to what I was saying before. You can have a million flat earths, you can have a million gurus, and they're gonna do shit because the people are still moving at their own pace. You can have all the information in the world that's gonna awaken, enlighten, and free people's minds and all that other bullshit, but if they hadn't put in the work, there ain't no answer key that's gonna fix anything or do anything to address the deeper issues. You're just gonna have a bunch of dumbass people aware of some new information, but they don't got nothing to do with that information. This is the hopes, because if you have a bunch of people who have this is the thing that people are not really realizing. What's gonna happen years down the line when people are privy to all this information, but they're still dumb as a box of rocks in the second coat of paint? They don't know what the fuck to do with any of this shit. So they're going to have you're going to have another critical mass, like overflow of people, kind of like the internet is today. People are so bombarded by all this technology and all this stuff that they're going to have some serious side effects. They're already having serious side effects right now. So this is going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect the children. It's going to affect the evolution of the mind of the child into the adolescent to the adult. It's already happening. And this is all on purpose, is what I'm saying. And a lot of this is allowed to happen because we still allow these individuals, like Eckhart Tolle, who put this, like, who are sponsored by people like Oprah, when Oprah is sponsored by the government. Why is Eckhart Tolle out there? Because he's supposed to be the talking head, or one of the, big mouthpieces for the idea of the new age interpretations of reality. Outside of the old, we evolved from monkeys, genetics. Now it's going from that to we're all about consciousness. And this is what I said, this whole forgiveness thing, that whole world of they can never do any wrong. Everything is oops. They just oops. They never have any accountability with anything. Like when they put that AIDS virus, and then when Bear sent that AIDS virus to another country and infected like 1 million something people, 1.5 million people, kids, with the AIDS virus or whatever, they just oopsed that shit up. Like when they go into all these wars on that, oops, we accidentally thought we were supposed to go to war with them, but now we're in a war right now, so we don't know what to do. Oops. That's how they're playing this shit. That is white people's character. So-called white people play that character. They're the super nice people of the universe, and they can do no wrong. So now that they have put that atmosphere of themselves out there in society, now they can have their so-called leaders tell the next agenda. And the leaders might not even know it because they just been, farting along in their little lifetime, doing whatever they doing and coming to their own realizations just like anybody else. But they just happen to get like all this promotion from the system. And like, ooh, I'm just so good at manifesting my reality that I just got Oprah to come and, sponsor all my shit. Then now they're all happy because the law of attraction. You see this shit? And since they are sponsored by people who got the okay by the sponsorers, like you got to get the sign off from the man. Oprah is the man. So if she's given the sign off, like Beyonce, so like but in a different style, and her style is dealing with the consciousness of the people, like specifically women, or excuse me, I'll expand it to the divine or the feminine. This is the control factor. So like Joe Rogan and people like that go on, like Graham Hancock and David Icke, Russell Brand, all the people that go on to the Joe Rogan experience, those are the people who are being put out there in society to sell to people this atmosphere of what a conscious man is supposed to be like. And this is happening with people like Eckhart Tolle and Tony Robbins and Russell Brand. These are what conscious men are supposed to be like. So conscious brown and black men around the world should strive to be like them. Why? Because people like Eckhart Tolle are the ones who know the divine purpose of the fucking universe. That's why. Because these people can just sit up there and, just wax rhapsodic just forever about what? This is the point is not them being able to do it. The point the point is that how they are received by society based on like given these topics that relate to the very nature of this whole experience. White people have put a sorcery on the masses of people that makes them think that they are the authority of thought in this entire realm, the whole fucking universe. So how successful would Eckhart Tolle be if he was just like, if he's just like a regular dude, like a Mexican dude or something like that? They, you would have white people like, oh, I'm not gonna listen to no dirty fucking Mexican. Like, so if he's a white dude, he's a universal guy. If it's a white person, it's a universal consciousness. That's what they want to put out there. White people are the amalgamation of all humans, and they are the evolutionary peak of this human experience. And people like Eckhart Tolle are a good example of what a divine man balanced with their divine masculine and feminine is. They can explain what the divine purposes of the universe are once they become one with themselves and conquer their ego, all the bullshit that gets put out in the New Age community. Once they check off the list of everything that the New Age teachers have said to do in their reality, then they can become conscious. And then they can tell the rest of the world what the divine purpose of the universe is. Now, I'm not saying people don't like sit around and think about it. And you can listen to what he's saying. Like I said, what he says, basically what he boils up the divine purpose of the universe is to have the form and the formlessness, a consciousness experience reality through the form and the formlessness. So it's just a flowery way of saying that you are both physical and non-physical. Is that the purpose, or is that just an analysis of this experience? It's just a fucking analysis. It has no purpose in it. But since he says it with the divine purposes, Oh, I just talked. Oh, I just talked for an hour and a half about how beautiful consciousness is, and now it's just about me boiling it down to what it is. Okay, what it is? What is the divine purpose of the universe? Let me pause for extra long and stare deadly into the audience. I'm just gonna look into the audience, staring at them quietly like I'm thinking about something super deep, but I just said this shit 2 seconds ago. Okay, this is the divine purpose of the universe. The divine purpose of the universe is is for the consciousness of this experience to experience this realm through the form and the formlessness. That's it. That's what it all is. Just go back to sleep. Have a nice day. So the point is with this is how many other people who are not Eckhart Tolle who actually speak about the purposes of this universe, how many ancestors do we have that spoke about the purpose of the universe? How many teachers today that are still alive? Bobby Hemmett, that speaks about the purpose of the universe, that are not even acknowledged as having any kind of they can't even be introduced into this circle of people, because this circle of people would be instantaneously exposed for their bullshit. What the fuck do you think Eckhart Tolle would be saying if he was sitting next to Bobby Hemmett? It would, the dude would fucking short circuit, because Bobby would push him as hard as he can go each and every time. The thing is, it's not really about the comparison like that. The point is, what is being promoted? Like, what kind of atmosphere is being promoted, and what kind of consciousness is being suppressed? You definitely have a consciousness or a type of person that is being promoted in society on every scale, especially the New Age community. And then once you have that, once you have put all these people on a pedestal, you don't really have to talk shit about anybody else. You just have to ignore them and act like their information doesn't exist, because all the information that you have around your topics is what really matters. So as long as they keep playing the story of the divine purpose of the universe through the eyes of people like Eckhart Tolle, Sadhguru, Mooji, and the New Age community, then you will always have this misinformed, disinformed, and uninformed. Like these people are not only uninformed, but they're ill-equipped. They don't have any place to put in the information that exists outside of the community that they got the information from. So they're pretty much like slaves to the New Age thought process. So this is why I left the New Age thought process, because this is how I felt when I was in there. I was like, I have to abide by all this shit. I gotta believe everything that these motherfuckers are talking about. Like, none of this is sitting in anywhere true. Like, all of this is based upon another version of theory. Yeah, a lot of the consciousness talk that Eckhart Tolle throws out there, and even Infinite Waters, like that stuff, it makes sense, obviously. But what I'm saying is that when you have all these things that make sense, and they're not that same kind of concept of analyzing is not put on the system that created a lot of these problems, then you're one-sided. And if it's one-sided, then you're in like a theory-based or belief system consciousness. You're not in it to really go to the depths of what's going on. You're only in it for yourself. You're only in it to feel better. See, this is what the New Age community is about. People go into the New Age community trying to feel better, trying to be better for themselves. And once they get that, they stop. And that's a benefit for the system. New Agers going in, like the smartest, most conscious people who are equipped to do something about this, to hold the system accountable for the system, for what it's been doing and what it's trying to do for the future. They get into the New Age community and they just suppress them. They just like Catholicism puts out guilt, well, the New Age puts out passive aggressive behavior, and then passivity. And it puts out this, and I'm glad I remembered this, it puts out this idea of romanticism. So when people are talking, when people say the word love, they're not saying love. They're talking about romanticism. And Bobby Hemmett talks about this a fair amount. I can't remember which videos it was. It's one of the latest Bobby Hemmett videos that I re-uploaded. Where he was talking about, I think somebody asked him about saving your people. I think that's what it was. Like, what can we do to save our people? And that's romanticism. So how does romanticism exist in the white community? Well, you got the secret space program. You got the sphere being alliance. David Wilcock, the ancient aliens. You got the bad aliens and the good aliens, and you got the good guys and the bad guys in the government agency. You got love will save the day. Love wins. Black Lives Matter. This is all romanticism. Is Black Lives Matter going to the depths of the institution of racism, white supremacy? No. It's about romanticizing a thought process, like putting some very deep issues into a very shallow box of interpretation and selling that box of interpretation to a bunch of very shallow people who have been maintained to be shallow for their entire lives on purpose, so they do not address the system. So another part of, I completely forgot, this would be like the white sorcery part too, but the biggest part of white sorcery, or this new age sorcery, is basically the consciousness of romanticism. So the love, your what is that, the twin flame talk, like, so everything in the new age community about like dealing with relationships, they tie in the love, they're talking about consciousness, the vibration, the frequency, oh, this and this, all this and this adds up to love, right? Oh no, that adds up to you romanticizing a storyline that feels good, that's supposed to affect you in a certain way based upon who and what you are in this moment in time. Because you want to focus. That's your experience. You want to have that love. It's all about love. It's about this and that. Okay, you're going to have a love experience. Well, what's the definition of love to a 16-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 25-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old? You see what I'm saying? Like, it evolves. It changes every time. So there is no real definition of love. But in society, there is a whole bunch of definitions of love. And since there is no real definition of love, then there is, you have, and that thing that's promoted through society, it's called love. We have to stop calling it love. When they use love to sell burgers and technology and Swiffer brooms and Roombas and shit, like, when they use love to sell all that, they're not saying that, they only use that term love to make you not, to make you pay attention, to make you think that it's for you. But when you start looking at anything that the system uses, and they call it love from the perspective of romanticizing you, like it's a romanticism. It's a fairy tale. It's a storyline. Love has been turned into this enlightenment, awakening tool, mechanism designed to dumb down, limit people, and suppress people's everything. Because everything is in love. Your revolution is in love. Like, why would you revolt if you still love the system? There's nothing to revolt against. Because there's so much fucking love out there. Everything everything is tied into this romanticizing of the world. So God has been romanticized. Everything, God in the New Age community, Romanticism, the divine purpose of the universe. Let's see what he says in this one.
You are here to enable the divine purpose of the universe to unfold. That is how important you are.
And that's
Hello,
it.
I'm Connie Kello, the publisher of The Power of Now in Canada. And I'm sitting here with Eckhart Tolle, spiritual teacher and the author of The Power of Now. Next to me also is Mark Allen, our American publisher, who is responsible for the release of this audio version of the book. The three of us join.
How I came to be a spiritual teacher and how this book came into existence. Until my 30th year, I lived in a state of almost continuous anxiety, interspersed with periods of suicidal depression. It feels now as if I'm talking about some past lifetime or somebody else's life.
Okay. So before we go any further, that's a little backstory to Eckhart Tolle. It's the same thing that see, this is that shallow shit that keeps people on the micro that is within this white sorcery and these new age teachers. They always come from some kind of fucked up, background. And since they came from that fucked up whatever, that means they transcended, they evolved, they made it. But it's only the white people that they care about, that they put out in society, that need to that come to these realizations that that tell their story the way they want it to be told. See, so-called black and brown people around the world who go through all this shit and come to their realizations, our realizations are not going to be the same realizations as people like Russell Brand and Eckhart Tolle. We're going to come to some much deeper realizations when we go through the same shit, if not more, usually more, than people like Eckhart Tolle and Russell Brand. But the system doesn't want that depth. That depth will go too far. That depth will uproot the system itself. So instead of going to the depths of the people who are unveiling this true depths, the true depths of consciousness that go beyond the system itself, they stay shallow to the shallow people who've only gone so far, like Eckhart Tolle, who've only gone so far. But in your eyes, you think they've gone further than you can ever achieve, even in this lifetime, because that's how they've been marketed. They've been marketed as this highly evolved spiritual being. But that doesn't mean that they are a highly evolved spirit. They've just been marketed that way. What if a higher evolved spiritual being isn't only talking about, consciousness? Or what if the highly evolved spiritual being is also talking about the very nature of the systems itself, the institutions that had led up to the problems themselves? See, people are not talking about that. If you ask me, that's a more higher consciousness approach to what's going on. Not to just throw it to the side and say, oh, that's lower ego thinking. That's what they do. These prescription drug thought processes. They since they don't have anywhere to put a lot of this information or what's going on, they got to just say, oh yeah, well, that a label has to be placed on it. So Romanticism is the main sorcery in the New Age community, and how they install that Romanticism into the New Age thought process is by grabbing these gurus who only go as far as the above the tier above the pillars of the Western consciousness. They're in the space of fixing the system. This is what the New Age is about. Fix the system. So this is why the system is promoting the New Age, because when they promote the idea of you fixing yourself, then they can promote the idea of us fixing the system.